our big trip when I was a kid was to go up the shore. If we could, we didn't do a lot of that because we had a lot of kids, but we really enjoyed the North Shore whenever we had the chance. And then when I lived in Duluth, I lived about 3 blocks from the lake, and we used to be down there all the time. I spent a lot of nights watching the moon rise over Lake Superior. And that rare nights when it was calm, we'd throw the canoes in and paddle around. It was just awesome. In the storms, we'd go down to Lake Park Point and watch the huge waves come in. Really enjoyed that, and just the power of Lake Superior. Now I work for the U.S. Forest Service. I spent time in Alaska and Wyoming, and then came back to Michigan, and now I live by Lake Michigan, and I'm really understanding the difference between the lakes. It's a much tamer lake, and I mean, you can swim in it for one thing, which is unusual, but it's still a great lake. But the shoreline is very different. It's very, it's just a whole different character. And I paddle my kayak a lot, and I do a lot in Lake Michigan because it's close. But paddling in Lake Superior is still a really special experience. There's a lot more wild shoreline. And I was a hydrologist for many years, and I'm just very in tune, or try and keep in tune to environmental issues anyway. And Lake Superior, like any lake, is a concern just from water quality, climate change. The lake levels right now are very disturbing as they keep going down and down, and partly because of global warming, because of the lack of ice in the wintertime, which is a huge factor there. So I guess it's really important for me, for people to understand that this is all connected to things they do every day. And a lot of people don't make that connection. Until they do and understand that it's going to damage the lake right in front of their front door, they're not going to really change their behavior. I think, I know there's still a lot of just pollution issues. We have dealt with a lot of those more local ones, I think, and at least in the U.S. there's a lot of regulation over some of that, but I'm sure there's still problems. But I think there's still some big things like mercury, I think, is a real big concern. And invasive plants is probably one of the biggest problems. I'm working for the U.S. Forest Service. Now I do GIS. I'm not a hydrologist anymore, but I'm still very in tune to some of the issues. And invasive plants in Lake Michigan, it's just tremendous with invasive species in general. A lot of the rusty crayfish and it's getting to be more and more of a problem. And I think they're starting to realize that, starting to do something about it. But I think that and global warming are probably our biggest concerns overall. I mean, there's still a lot of local issues, but I think people need to understand that what they do every day is connected to that.
Are you seeing any changes? Are people acting different? Are they more aware?
Oh, I think so. It's hard for me to compare just because I've lived in different places. Wyoming is a lot more conservative, although even there I saw change. Mm-hmm. And yeah, I think people are more and more aware of it. It varies as to where you are exactly, but I think especially when, unfortunately, gas prices was the biggest factor in driving people to drive small or buy small cars, but boy, it made a difference.
It did.
But I think people are very conscious of it, and I think a lot of it is they just need to be educated more and more aware of what they can do in their personal life, in their everyday life, to make a difference. And I think in elections it becomes much more of an issue than it used to be.
Okay. Wow. Any other thoughts you'd like to share with people?
I guess I think I've known Mike for many years, and he hasn't changed a bit. Lost a little hair on top, but I think he's still doing some great stuff. And I think he was one of my instigators for getting me involved in this whole area. My mother definitely gave me the liberal views and just the open-mindedness, but I think Mike kind of started me on that path a little bit, and then I got into it in a lot bigger way. But I think it's been great, and I think it really does help. Like I say, it brings people to come and listen to you talk about issues and some of the issues. Yeah. And I think if people can get real hands-on stuff that they can do or be aware of, it really helps the next time they vote or the next time they buy a car or buy a house. I mean, buildings are actually probably our biggest problem. But anyway, that's, yeah.
Well, thank you so much, Scott.
Well, thanks for giving me the opportunity.